Kim Bradley, congratulations on your third book in a series. I am so excited to talk about your journey as a writer and also how the parallel journey of marketing has become easier and easier as you've experimented so that you give us all hope and you give us all inspiration. Let I'd love to see your new book and let's just dive into everything. Let's talk about writing first.
We'll talk about writing. Here it is. Yay!
Miss of
Miss of Menorca.
Menorca.
I know. You can see the horse on the cover because Menorcan horses are a very important part of this story and an important part of Menorcan culture. So that's part of the fun of writing a historical fiction adventure series. And this is the third installment in an exotic location. So my first book was in Greece. My second book was in Turkey. And so now my main character, Sebastian, has made it to the island of Menorca. And he has these seafaring adventures and he's dealing with the political oppression and family drama and just coming of age, growing up and trying to figure out who he is in the world. And it's been really fun to write this series.
I love it. And I have to say, this might be the most beautiful cover so far. And the book is really adventurous. You know, it starts at sea, which reminds me of so many books that I read when I was young, just like Treasure Island. All of that drama. And that's the inciting incident before we even get to the island. And at the same time, and this is what I love the most about historical fiction, is it's a coming of age story where somebody is trying to figure out, you know, what they authentically want to do to have a soul-filled life. And so it parallels your journey in so many ways. And so let's get in to how you've done your marketing. So this, you make the perfect example of how to implement the authentic audience growth because you're growing your author career, you're growing your skill at the writing craft, and we are doing this together so that it gets easier and easier as you grow your audience. So, first and foremost, I think one of the most important things is the first question in the booklet, which is what is your raw intention? So, bringing that back to your why. Where are you coming from? What do you really want from all of this?
Yeah, it's a good question because if you would have asked me a couple of years ago when I was first starting out writing, am I excited about marketing or do I think marketing is fun or do I enjoy marketing? I probably would have said no, partly because I didn't understand it and partly because I was still figuring it out. And I have to say, like, the strategy now, like the marketing is absolutely more fun. And I think it's because when you come back to the why and the raw intention, if you can look at marketing through the lens of the same visual that you use when you get excited about wanting to write a book, they really do parallel and it fits. Like, why did you want to write a book? Why did I want to write historical fiction? Because I love reading it and I love everything about it. I think the storytelling is fun and historical fiction. And that is the same raw intent that I have been placing on my marketing lately in marketing these books and this Mist of Menorca, it's just coming out this week. So it's the same why. It's you don't have to be afraid of it. It actually becomes easier. It actually becomes more fun when you say, oh, I want to connect with other people who love historical fiction, who love adventure stories, and probably people who like the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark or Pirates of the Caribbean or other fun stories that I loved or movies that I loved watching. And when you get excited about that, that's what marketing is. It doesn't have to be like, oh, this thing that you have to do that other people tell you there are a million rules about how you do it. They could they could say that the same thing about writing books. And I have found that's not the case. For me, if I write what I enjoy, if I tell a story that I am excited about writing and reading, it just translates into the marketing. It's kind of like a revelation 3 books in, like, oh, this isn't as hard as I thought it was.
This is what we're doing. Exactly. And part of that revelation is the fact that unless you go back to your raw intention, you can be chasing all the shiny objects, which is why I really wanted to get into it with you because Raiders of the Lost Ark is historical fiction. That's what we love about adventure historical fiction. And so, one of the things to keep in focus is to realize what you want from your author career and not doing everything that everybody says. And I think this is beautiful because as we were doing this workshop together, one of the things we realized is your raw intention is not just sell more books. Your raw intention for marketing specifically is to build a core community of readers, to really be able to have a direct connection with your core group, which in my experience is extremely powerful. Now, everybody has to be honest about what they want. If they are at the discovery phase and they just want people, they want to sell more books, they want people to discover their books, that's important. But I'd love to get into a little bit of the strategy of why we decided for you to connect with your core group of readers, actually, make friends, know names, that kind of thing. Give me a little more background on that.
Yeah, I think that is sort of like using your own intuition to figure out what works best for you. And what I have found is that the couple of people who have read my first and second book and have like taken the time to email me to say I really liked it or they shared it, and people that I don't know, not my neighbors, not my friends that I went to high school with, but like people that I don't know who found the book and just loved it for itself without even knowing me. That's those people have done more for marketing for me than I could have planned to do for myself because they're legitimately excited about it, as excited as I am about it. And when you get a core group or a community of people who love the same things, those same people, when they tell me like what they're reading or what other books they love, it's all the same books that I love too. So it becomes like this group of people that you're like, you just want to chat about books with. And your loyal readers, they tell everybody, hey, I loved this book. It meant something to me. There are pieces of it that relate to my life, whatever the reason is. It might just be a lot of people just in my books. I've read a lot about food, and a lot of people have said to me, like, I had to get the recipe or I had to make this for dinner the other night because it sounded good. Like that makes it easy. Your marketing is easy in that sense because they are helping you market and they're not even doing it like a contract or an obligation. They're doing it because they want to. And that is so fulfilling and satisfying.
And that's where it all comes together. That this is what marketing is. And I will tell you, experiencing this with so many authors is that it makes it easy, it makes it fulfilling, and the leverage of that core group of readers is actually wonderful and it's the best you can do. Sometimes people ask me, you mean I have to shake hands with everybody who's going to read my book? And no, the fact is that when you're making genuine friendships, then those people comment on your posts, then that post spreads, then you get more like-minded people. Those people talk about your books. And so this is what I love about marketing and what I've experienced in my own business and my own marketing is really you just bond with people who you like-minded people who you have a lot in common with. Reviews for your book work way more than first discovery ad type of behavior. And so yes, so I just have to say this is not too good to be true. It really does. You shifted from a job where you were starting to get burned out into this much more workable system that really does snowball on itself. So that's actually another thing I talk about in the authentic audience growth question. So we like the beginning is important. So we talked about the raw intention. I'd love to hear a little bit about what did you go through and what did you have to go through to get where you are now? Let's review that question really quick because you know more than you think you know. So yes, question to you. What did you have to go through to get to this author to become a full-time author?
It's funny. It's an adventure in and of itself. It definitely has the analogy to adventurous historical fiction in that
Flash
you.
the book, flash the book. Exactly. I mean, it's autobiographical, right? This is what Miss of Menorca is.
It's so true because you're forced out of your comfort zone, and when that happens, you learn things about yourself. But I think that's always the challenge for everyone. I had a secure and a stable job. I think I was good at that job. I did it for a long time, but I became burned out, and I did not enjoy it anymore. It became drudgery, and I I could have been safe and I could have stayed there and I could have kept doing it, but like that just it wasn't going to cut it anymore. And so the leap of moving away from the stability of a regular job in something that you're familiar with, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it doesn't feel very good, it's still familiar. When you walk away and you take that leap, you have a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions. Am I doing this right? And, am I making a big mistake? Is this going to work? What's going to happen? But that's part of the unknown. That's the adventure of it. As long as you're following what excites you, at least this is what I found in my own journey. If I get excited about something, and I really got excited about leaving my job to do a new job, and I treated it like a startup business. So anybody who's ever started their own business, I just treated my author career like I'm leaving this stable position and I'm going to start my own business. And it's an author business and I'm going to treat it like I'm going to run a business. And there are a lot of unknowns with that. There's a lot of experimentation with that. But as long as, for me, because I was following what felt right and what felt exciting, it seemed like a lot of things fell into place over time.
Amazing. And that's the best advice too. I mean, I think it's so interesting in that the Miss of Menorca became your therapy for that because you're writing this protagonist who has a parallel experience. But whereas so many of us had stability, paycheck, that we felt maybe a little caged by that stability and we wanted to break into something fulfilling. I will say that the stability of being an author is your momentum, is just kind of those experiments after experiments. Whereas before, you may have had a job where, you just did what they told you to and they gave you a check every 2 weeks or whatever it might have been. And that was stability. Now, every experiment you make becomes a lesson and then you build off of that. I sometimes say, I'm praying to the God of momentum because the God of momentum, like I've got him behind me whenever I feel like I'm tired. That's my stability. And so with this marketing program, which is all free, by the way, this is all on YouTube. I just want to spread the love and people who view my content will be more successful doing this. And so you can get an idea. This is all based on the God of momentum, as I would say it. And so with every experiment, you get farther. So with that, we got into day 2 of our little YouTube program, which is content. So we went into based on what your core group of people love, what were the core content groups we came up with.
Yeah. There are people in bookstores and historical societies and just local places, some like Ren fairs that have like pirate weekends is a good place to meet people. Um, Writer groups is a good place to meet people. There are lots of people who like to write the same kind of fiction. So that's like the main place where my books are for sale in person and I get to meet people and talk to people who are interested in those subjects.
And that's great because this is one of the reasons I really wanted to interview you because so many people get stressed out that they're going to have to become a social media master. But your your groups are discovery in bookstores. So your momentum machine is a little different than anything I had in the booklet. So discovery in bookstores. Then we have Instagram for nurturing relationships. And then the books are your content assets. So this is really interesting because we realized for you, email is not the way to go. So I'd love to walk people through this idea of how we talked this out together. And we realized that your core content groups are travel, history, and the writing process and pictures of books. So your in-person events actually lend themselves this strategy you enjoy of meeting people in person actually lends itself to the process. So, one of the things when we have these core content groups, travel history, reading process, writing process are where you really have a lot of in common with your core group of readers. What have you noticed kind of with the 80-20 rule? What what works best in your Instagram?
Yeah, that's part of the experimentation because I've been posting, like 3 books in, I post a lot of things about my books on my social media and my website and Substack. And you learn which things interest people the most. And the writing process, maybe because there are a lot of writers that are also, I mean, the content that I consume on social media is other writers' content as well. So that's probably, that's probably part of the feedback loop. But people love the writer's journey. So if I go to a coffee shop and bring my little journal, like I have my little I still write things by hand a lot before I convert them to the computer. If I coffee and a pastry and a journal and I post that, that's like my 80%. People seem to love that. Or food, pictures of food that I've eaten on my travels. People seem to really like that too. So that's my 80% rule. Oh, and also because Greece and Turkey, and also, well, Greece and Turkey mostly have a lot of cats. So I have a lot of cat posts on my social media about my travels, about places that I've been. In Menorca, it was sort of equal cats and dogs, but those are also like my 80% posts. Like they get the most activity, the most interest, people like them the most, and they're the ones that I can use over and over again because I know that people are interested in seeing that. I will watch that same like cat video that I've seen 20 times. I'll watch it again. I'll show my husband. Like, hey, have you seen that? Yeah, you show me that 10 times. I know, I can't help it. I love it. So that's, that's my that works in marketing on social media as well.
And you see that once you get the hang of it. So there's just so much I want to highlight about what you just said because, you know, it feels like things change and it feels like there's so many shiny objects. Like, now there are new dimensions for the Instagram grid. People seem to be coming off of Facebook, going someplace else. You don't have to chase. One thing that I am amazed at is, a lot of our core groups, coffee pictures, cat pictures, food pictures are what is working. And so when you're just experimenting and then monitoring what works, the idea that 20% of your content is going to get 80% of the results makes it so much easier once you get into it, once you experiment, to be able to still dedicate the majority of your time to writing because you know how to leverage your content and it does get easier. You grow, you use what works, and you connect with regular people in your core group that keep on commenting and sharing the same things you like. And so, this is why, and I loved how this turned out because we had a session where we just really got into what's working and what's not. And so this is spectacular because what was working for you, the Renaissance Festival, indie bookstores, and then historical centers and different events like that. You loved attending them, you were selling more books, and then you were meeting people who didn't want to join an email so much as they loved connecting with you on Instagram. So, and this is all in this packet. If you want to follow along on the last page, we plugged these things that you like the most into Content assets are, of course, your gorgeous books. Network assets, you're meeting people at bookstores and events. And then nurture assets, you can nurture those relationships so that people don't forget who you are on Instagram. And then this builds momentum. So you said positive feedback loop. I'm obsessed with positive feedback loops because that's what builds momentum and makes it easier with time. So now every time you launch that book, you're not starting from discovery, you're not starting from scratch, but you're building something fulfilling and beautiful that becomes more and more stable as you go. It gets easier and it gets more powerful at the same time. I'm all about the snowball effect. So, yes, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And now we're adding this on your third book, and you've had the time to write it because you've made the work easier. So, how does it feel to be putting out your third book?
Yeah, it feels really good. What you just said reminded me of something else that I think I learned along the way that um, was important to me, which is everything you post. If you're doing social media, everything you post, it does not have to be perfect. It's the same way. Like I can't really edit as I go because I will get mired in. I have to like write and then edit later, because otherwise if I'm second guessing myself while I'm trying to put the flow on the paper, it never works. And the same I think is true for marketing. If you are second guessing like this photo that I'm putting or what I'm writing on my caption of social media, like does this look good, is this color right, should I do this, should I write it like this, what hashtags, like if you get mired in that, just realize you're posting, you're building while you're posting. So every post does not have to be perfect. And once I realized that, where I was just like, oh, okay, I'm posting today. I'm excited about my book. I'm going to post a cover of my book. I'm not going to care about, how it's formatted or what size it is or does everything fit. I'm just going to post it because I'm excited about it. That whole perfectionism, every little piece has to be perfect, is not what the building is about. The building is about construction and change and evolution, and that's also part of the marketing process.
Absolutely. And that's exactly how I feel about YouTube. You know, you're helping people, you're getting the content out there, and then it grows on itself. The fact is, the core of momentum is all the stuff you learn in the process. That's the core of everything. It is for the books, it is for the marketing. And thank you so much for showing us such a great example of how all of this works. So I want to talk about the links below. You can get this booklet so you can create this for yourself right below. Just click the link below to sign up. And if you're working with me already or you want to do a marketing session together to be able to get your books out there, then the link to sign up for a session is also below to be able to figure out what will work best for you. And of course, we have Miss of Menorca, so you can kind of see how what Kim has in her books. So we have all the links to her books, especially Miss of Menorca, the new book. It has come out now, and we're growing as we go. So Kim, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's always so fun. I loved that marketing call we had, and I am so glad that we're on this journey together. It's been amazing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kim. Bye.